I'd like to call the Sparks Planning Commission to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Roll call. Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Bowles? Absent. Commissioner Peterson?
Here.
Commissioner Barnes?
Here.
Commissioner Nowicki?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders is absent. Commissioner Sperber?
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Doug Thornley? Here. And City Planner Armando Ornelas.
Here. Next, we have public comment. Anybody in the audience wish to come to speak on an item, either on or off the agenda, please step up. Seeing nobody, we have approval of the minutes for November 3rd, 2011.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Who made the motion and who seconded?
Jackie made the motion and Mitch
Second.
second.
For the minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jenna.
The agenda. Approval of the agenda.
We didn't do that. Oh,
That's kind of new.
we went to approval of the minutes. We got to go back and do approval of the agenda.
Okay, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Nowicki and a second from Commissioner Peterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Announcements and committee reports.
Tim, do you have a couple of announcements for him? Okay.
Next, we have public hearing item, PCN 11030.
Were you going to do informational item?
You're going to do it.
Yep.
That was it, I called it.
It's more appropriate, I think.
I saw Tim twitching.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Planning Commission reappointments, next year's schedule of Planning Commission meetings. As I'm sure most of you are aware, both Commissioner Barnes and Commissioner Nowicki are termed out. Their term expires at the end of this month. However, there is a provision in the resolution that governs the term limits that states that if less than 3 applications are received for a planning commissioner, that a planning commissioner can be reappointed to a third and final term, which is actually why Commissioner Peterson remains on the Planning Commission, is because that was utilized the last time that she was reappointed. So there is the possibility, if Commissioners Barnes or Nowicki choose to be reappointed, that they could potentially be reappointed, depending on how many applications have been received for the vacancies. It is my understanding that Commissioner Barnes has chosen not to be reappointed at this point. So I don't know if Scott has anything to say. As far as next year's schedules go, we're going to do next year what we did this year, where our schedules are set up to target that first Planning Commission meeting of each month. However, we will we will continue to have that second meeting on the schedule, just in case we need to bump an item or we don't have, for whatever reason, a quorum. State law does require that we do have at least one Planning Commission meeting a month. So we're trying to set it up in a way that if we can't hit that first meeting, that we can hit the second meeting, which then leads to your next meeting after tonight is going to be January 19th. And we do have a couple of items for you to consider that night. So that will be your next meeting into next year. We'll be reviewing, again, the rules of procedure. At least at this point, we'll probably have to make some minor changes to that document. And then what else? And then we'll do the election of the officers as well for next year.
Tim, do you know what items that you're talking about maybe changing?
Mostly just cleanup items.
Okay.
Changing the address, for example, it still has the 1675 East Prater address as the home of the Planning Commission, so we'll change that around. We may also have to update the resolution number that deals with the term limits. There may have been a resolution that actually superseded the resolution that's documented in those. So it mostly just clean up items from staff's perspective, and then, of course, any changes that the Planning Commission would like to consider.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Jackie?
On January 19th, that's going to be Sheep Dip's dress rehearsal, so I will not be here.
You come to sheep?
Or whatever character I am.
Thank you for actually pointing that out, because one of the items that we have for that meeting is actually a master plan amendment, and we're going to need 5 planning commissioners for that meeting. So it is going to be critical that we know if you can or cannot make that meeting. So we're hoping to have the appointments of the vacant seats completed by at least the first council meeting in January, which will hopefully give us a little bit of time to get folks here for that January 19th meeting. So thank you.
Tim, if you don't have the new planning commissioners appointed, I'd be happy to sit in.
Okay.
So, if you need me, I'll be here.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Before we go to the public hearing items, I'd like to welcome Mr. Peterson, Jackie's husband, sitting out there.
His name's actually Mr. Grundy.
And welcome Mrs. Nowicki, which is Mitch's wife, sitting on the
Does
audience.
she have a different name?
I don't know.
Who's a one we can talk about anyway?
Okay, moving on to public hearing items. The first one is PCN 11030, Sparks Marina RV Park. Jim Rundell.
Good evening, Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a request from Sparks Marina RV Park to amend the approved Marina Landing Plan Development Handbook. Hopefully the Planning Commission was able to find in their packet some tabbed pages that highlighted the areas to which the applicant is proposing to change the previously approved handbook. This approved handbook is in an area that is known to some of the veteran planning commissioners as the Marina Area Plan. A couple years ago, staff did remaster plan the area and is now within the Transit-Oriented Development Master Plan. So the Marina Area Plan actually was removed from this area. As with any Plan Development Handbook amendment, there are 21 findings that staff has to make in order to support approval for the project, and staff has made all 21 findings to recommend approval, and that's what we are recommending to the Planning Commission. The parcel to which these amendments would occur on is at the corner of Prater Way and Marina Gateway on the southwest corner. And I would show that to you on an aerial photo, but from what I understand, the aerial photo is not working tonight. So hopefully you can envision it in your head, and it's along the east side of the existing car wash that is at that site. As I said earlier, staff has made a case for each of the 21 findings. Most of the findings did not need a significant amount of explanation because the application is not proposing to change any of the housing or commercial that was previously approved by the Planning Commission and City Council. Instead, this is essentially creating some flexibility to create a project on the site at the southwest corner of Marina Gateway and Prater Way. But I do want to point out finding number 21. It is one of the more important findings when the Planning Commission is considering an amendment to a Plan Development Handbook. PD finding 21 does not occur is not required when you're approving a brand new handbook, only when you're amending a handbook. And today's request is to amend a previously approved handbook. And what I really want to point out is that staff does not believe that this undermines the integrity of the Marina Landing Handbook. And the reason we don't believe that is it's not changing any of the commercial that was approved there, or it's not changing any of the residential component that was approved there. Essentially, we don't know what project will be built there. It is a few sign amendments that allows for some flexibility in where the signage would go and some flexibility in potential design for the project. But it is important for me to have the Planning Commission understand that we do not believe this undermines the integrity of what the original Marina Landing Plan Development was approved for. And that concludes my presentation.
Is there any questions for Jim?
Just
Commissioner Barnes?
thank you, Chairman Lee. Jim, when we amend a handbook, we've done a lot of these lately in the last few years. What happens when we've got a development that's partially done, partially complete, and partially not? What happens to the existing uses when we amend a handbook? Or any of the condition? Does it only go from this point forward for new projects, or?
Can you further?
I hate doing a what-if question, but
It, yeah,
if
I
we're
don't mind
changing
the what if,
landscaping
but I-
requirements or anything else?
Well, in the case of this amendment, the way it would work is for future development would have to comply with the standard that was on, the design standard that was modified to say 55% of the site would be potentially 30 feet of landscaping or built along the frontage of that street. In this case, it doesn't, it may very well not affect the existing car
Okay.
wash at the site, if that's what you're asking.
It's more of a conceptual question
It's-
whenever we
guess-
do these.
Okay, it's similar to when we did the TOD, I suppose.
Okay.
And we approved minimum densities for the corridor south of Prater, north of I-80, from the hospital to the city line with Reno. We required a certain amount of dwelling units be constructed on each parcel, a certain amount of parking, landscaping. Now, that didn't mean that somebody who lived on the corner of Prater and F Street, within the corridor, has to come in and upgrade their site to comply with the new zoning standards.
Okay.
Essentially, would be approved as a, I guess it could be a substandard development or something like that, but it does not mean that you have to come in and upgrade your site
Okay.
because of new standards being put in place.
Okay.
It's where the grandfather clause
Yeah,
comes in.
okay, grandfather. I'm thinking point in time, but grandfather clause. Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Any questions for
Or
Jim?
Jim, sorry.
Jim, I got one. Why did we change the square footage on the sign from 120 to 60 square foot?
Reducing it.
And then if you want to turn to page 53 real quick.
There was a sign required at the corner of Marina Gateway and Prater. And it was staff's opinion that if the applicant wanted to put a sign there, they could put a sign there. But if they wanted to move a sign further west along Prater and have it address just the people on Prater to an extent, they could. And so that was I don't know if negotiation is the right term, but we didn't have any heartburn over allowing for the sign to be moved.
Okay.
I think that if you needed further explanation, the
No, that's
applicant's
fine.
representative.
I was just curious here on the entry sign. It has the lighthouse feature will be located in the corner of Marina Gateway Drive and Lincoln Way will be a maximum of 8 feet tall. Should there be a square footage after that?
Are you
On page 53, where entry sign, it just gives the height but no square footage.
Okay, under entry sign, is it lined and struck out on your?
No, that's
The bottom line.
the very last one, the entry.
Oh,
I wonder if there should be a...
it probably should be.
You're so smart.
I mean, there's square foot, it should be 60 square foot in there, shouldn't it?
Let me think about that,
Okay.
Commissioner Lean. I may need to ask
Because
the
I don't wanna
applicant.
let the sandbook go without...
Yeah, it's a good catch. You want to call the applicant up?
Yeah,
Commissioner
I will.
Lean?
I'm going to open a public hearing and have the applicant come down, please.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Melissa Lindell with Wood Rogers. I have Mr. Don Lilliquist with Maverick with me tonight. And basically, I understand the overhead isn't working, so I'll hold this up and then pass it out to you. But the request, the handbook deals with this little piece called Buccaneer Landing. And The change would be to add some flexibility here to increase the size of the landscape buffer from 15 feet to 30 feet, to double it, as an alternative to putting the buildings right up on the street. So it gives some flexibility. So that was one of the changes. And I'm going to pass this out just so you can see where it would apply to. And the car wash, as we understand, would be grandfathered in, and it wouldn't affect that. But if any new development came in, they'd have to put the larger, nicer, wider landscape in. The second change relates to the sign. And the original intent was to put a big monument sign advertising the Buccaneer Landing. And for such a small site, 3 some odd acres, it seems kind of overkill to have a big sign that just advertises Buccaneer Landing. So we asked to have that removed or as an option, and to be able to just put in a sign that would advertise one of the businesses. And with that, we don't need such a big sign. So that's why the sign got reduced. And then, Commissioner Lean, you had a question about, on page 53, for the entry sign, and that lighthouse feature relates to a location that's not in Buccaneer. It's part of this handbook. It's over at Marina Gateway in Lincoln. And I guess the original handbook never did address a square footage for that lighthouse feature, but a height. But that isn't on the property that we're talking about.
Yeah, that one just caught my eye, and I was,
Yeah.
okay, I appreciate that, Melissa.
So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it.
Any questions for Melissa? Or Don out there? Art? No. No? Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, thank you.
So anybody else in the audience wish to come speak on this item?
I'm Bill Mankey Jr., and I own the car wash that's right next door, and own the property also. I just wanted to make sure that if this does get passed, where the 30-foot's added in the section they're talking about, it doesn't affect the car wash, just for the future. Say if I decide to do something in the car wash, remodel it, add on to it, or anything like that. I don't want to have it where all of a sudden I got to add 30 feet of landscaping across there.
Maybe Mr. Rendell can address that.
Well, it's hard for me to speculate that if someone comes in to add on to a building, what the standards would be. There's too many variables. I'm not prepared to answer
Okay.
that question. It depends on, is there something else built next door? How we would apply the standards. So you've got the TOD master plan in place where you have certain FARs required, and a handbook that doesn't require that. But the handbook really doesn't have any provision for that I know of to add to the car wash. So I'm just not prepared to answer such a speculative question.
So we kind of answered it and we kind of did not answer it. I don't know really if that's
Just the way it looks like it's lined out, it's lined out,
straight down.
well, straight down, and it stops right at that road.
Correct.
And even the wording in the deal looks like that. I just want to clarify to make sure that's the way everybody's taking it here.
Chairman, if I may.
Armando?
I mean, the standard was crafted specifically so that it could be satisfied by the development on the remainder of the parcel.
Okay.
If for some reason, it's not satisfied by that adjacent development, then, in the
Well,
future.
that whole area there, I don't have a problem with that area there being 30 feet.
Well, again,
The part we're talking about. Yeah, I've seen it. I don't have a problem with that whole area going across with 30 feet.
well, again, the way the standard was crafted, it was crafted so that, it could be satisfied by this new development. It doesn't require the 30-foot across the entire parcel. It requires it across, 55% of the frontage.
Okay.
So if that new development satisfies the standard, then I think we would say that it did
Yeah, I
not.
just didn't want it all of a sudden worded in there where it says the entire frontage of Prater Way is 30 foot going across.
Yeah, and
Well, it doesn't. It has a 55%
Okay.
limit in the wording. There's and that was added from the last continued meeting. The applicant and I worked on 55% of the site's frontage.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Bill. Any other questions for Jim? Anybody else in the audience wish to come speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
You prepared for a motion?
Commissioner Peterson.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of PCN 11030, an amendment to a plan development handbook for Marina Landing, adopting findings PD1 through PD21, and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report. The tentative approval includes that the applicant shall file the application for the final approval of the amendment plan development within 1 year from the date of the City Council granting the tentative approval of the plan development handbook. Since the approval action is tentative, the Planning Commission recommends that the City Council not require a bond at this time, as stated in NRS 278A.490.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Peterson and a second from Commissioner Barnes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have public comment. Anybody in the public wish to speak on an item, either on or off the agenda, please step forward. They're all stepping out.
Yep.
Next, we have, before we have comments, any other public comment? I think maybe Jim has,
I have something to say, Commissioner.
sure.
We've got a resolution here to celebrate Commissioner Barnes's last meeting as a planning commissioner, from what we understood to be your last meeting as a planning commissioner. And
It falls under the category of other duties as assigned.
if you'll indulge me, Commissioner Lean, I'd like to read the resolution.
Yeah, I will, please.
Resolution number 191, introduced by the Sparks Planning Commission. A resolution recognizing the contributions of Commissioner Scott Barnes. Whereas Scott Barnes was appointed to the Sparks Planning Commission on August 25th of 2003, reappointed on December 3rd, 2003, and again reappointed on December 17th, 2007, served continuously through December 1st, 2011, and most recently serving as chair in 2010. And whereas Commissioner Barnes served on the Regional Planning Commission in June of 2006 to June of 2009. And whereas during his membership on the Sparks Planning Commission, Commissioner Barnes participated in many important deliberations, including removal of the East Truckee River Canyon from the Sparks sphere of influence, approval of the Sparks Transit-Oriented Development Plan, approval of the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development, and approval of the Smart Growth Kylie Ranch North Development Handbook. And whereas the Sparks Planning Commission and Regional Planning Commission both meet on a regular basis, requiring Commissioner Barnes' attendance at hundreds of public meetings, workshops, study sessions, and neighborhood meetings. And whereas Commissioner Barnes has unselfishly committed his time and knowledge, making significant contributions to the planning process for the City of Sparks and the Truckee Meadows during his tenure as a planning commissioner for the Sparks Planning Commission. Now therefore it be resolved that the Sparks Planning Commission acknowledges and sincerely appreciates the invaluable contributions of Commissioner Barnes, those contributions that he has made to the City of Sparks during his tenure as a Sparks Planning Commissioner. And I'll ask that you pass and adopt this resolution to celebrate this on December 1st, 2011.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. I'd like to real quick, too, Scott, say it's been a pleasure working with you, not only on the Sparks Planning Commission, but on the regional. I've learned a lot from you. Honestly, there's been sometimes, I know, especially on the regional, I just looked right at you and I didn't have a clue where we were going or what I was even doing there.
Like I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been times, and you've helped me right along. But I do appreciate your service and your time not only for the Sparks Planning Commission, but the city of Sparks, too.
Thank you for
You
your kind
bet.
words. Thank you, Jim.
All right, big guy.
Does that mean we're not letting Mitch go? Is that what that means?
So long with that, we're adjourned.
Snow is
Sorry,
glistening,
Mitch.
a beautiful sight. We're happy tonight, walking in the wind.